Welcome everyone. Thanks for coming today. Thanks to South by Southwest for having us here today, and obviously all the panelists for being here. We have a lot to talk about, some interesting topics, and about everyone here's experiences in sport and in business. So looking forward to it. Thank you all individually as well for being here. We wouldn't be here without you, and you helping to build a really special thing here at South by Southwest, so we appreciate that. And without further ado, let's get into it. So first question, Tilly, is the most important question. Where's your medal?
I knew this one would come up, so I did bring my medal in its special medal case, which is a footy sock. Very Australian. Obviously, I'm a water polo player, so we don't wear socks, but we get the socks anyway. So,
did they give you a case?
Yeah, we have a big... Here it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. We got a big box, but it's far too big to carry around, so the box is firmly planted under my bed, and then when I have to take it out in public, I bring the socks.
It's probably the most Australian thing you could say.
Yeah, it works.
Nice. Dave, I see you eyeing that. Is there any chance in 2028 that we could get some gold? Cricket, by the way, cricket's in the Olympics, so...
Yeah, 100%. I'm officially going to make my comeback, so I look forward to that. I better start training now, but I haven't had the conversation with the wife yet, so we'll see how that goes.
That could be problematic. Good luck, mate. And so we'll get into the meat, obviously, of what we're talking about today, which is about athlete IP, and the ways in which athletes have been able to monetize their brand and their star power has changed exponentially. Gone are the days that Mark Taylor's on TV advertising Fujitsu air conditioners. There's so many different opportunities with social media and brands that are wanting to work with athletes. I'll kick it over to Dave. You have a massive reach on your socials and a lot of different business interests. That sort of developed over time, and maybe not so much at the start of your career, that socials weren't as big a thing. Can you just talk us through how your journey into developing your brand and how that sort of correlated with cricket?
Yeah, look, I think most important thing is when you're playing cricket and you're contracted with your country or with your state, you're legally bound by sponsors. So as an individual, you're affiliated with the team sponsors, and there's protected sponsors, which range from platinum, gold, and down. So from an individual branding perspective, you basically go on this journey of finding sponsors outside of those categories, and that's only, that only comes to you when you've played for probably 4, 5, 6 years, when you start understanding that yourself, and then your manager goes out there and you try and find a niche of what your brand is. And I think you have a look around and try and work out what you want to work with, what you feel like your brand alignment would be. And for me, it's sort of at the start, was pretty energetic. I had my time in the sun a little bit when I was a young punk. I was quite mischievous early doors, but then I sort of grew into this sort of mature person thanks to my wife, and sort of went down the kids route. When we had kids, we loved it, absolutely loved, sort of working with a couple of baby brands, which is more with Candace side of things. And then I sort of had to realize, okay, my wife's got her own brand, I've got my own brand, where do I need to go? And the first thing for me was aligning myself with children's books. And they sort of came to me with a storyline and my upbringing, and I felt like it was a great narrative, but no way whatsoever am I an author. I loved school. I wasn't the best person at school, but that really started sort of my branding and what I wanted to do from that perspective as having kids as a parent. But from there, I went into Toyota, which is a major partner sponsor with Cricket Australia, and that was more along the lines of family. It was family orientated. So for me, family is a massive and important thing to me. So I sort of went towards that, and then let's move on to the sort of the darker period for everyone. COVID, which wasn't a great thing, it sort of was like, what do we do? How do we entertain? How do we still keep our brand aligned with everyone and put sort of smiles on people's faces? So for me, social media, TikTok, Instagram, and that family-orientated position of, dancing with the kids, engaging with fans and seeing what fans would like. And that was an opportunity for us as athletes to show the real us, the real people that aren't just on the field and what you see. Because you have your own opinions of what you see on the field, but off the field, that's what social media is good for from an individual perspective. And it sort of started from there. TikTok, Instagram built that following, and then the sponsors come from there. And from that point was more, what do I want to be aligned with? And I've got some healthy sponsors now, which is great and fantastic, but you've got to keep that brand alive.
Right. And Tilly, your experience is a little bit different because when you sort of were thrust into the spotlight, social media was a thing, right? And so do you have a different sort of perspective than Dave in terms of like having to, you sort of didn't get to really build as much because you were just there?
Yeah, for sure. So I always post on Instagram. I enjoyed it just at school. My friends all thought what I posted was funny, and I kind of just did it for us, like it was our little school community, whatever.
Tilly is very funny if you see her socials.
Thank you. Stop it. Yeah, anyway, so I was just kind of showing who I was, my authentic side online. And when I went to my first Olympics in Tokyo, that was the first time that you could film stuff from within the village and from within venues. So, I mean, I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew that the previous Olympics, my teammates couldn't show anything. You couldn't post any photos because of all the copyrights and the laws around that. But then it was changed. So luckily, the timing was kind of perfect for me. I was posting anyway. There were a few videos that just blew up. But I didn't exactly go in with a plan. I just liked doing it, and people thought it was good stuff. And then throughout Tokyo, my TikTok kind of blew up to now I have 500,000 followers on TikTok and 130,000 on Instagram. And it's purely just from posting my kind of behind the scenes and showing who I am, as you said, who you are as a person, not just an athlete, because people want to see that. Water polo is not the biggest sport in the world, but they really resonate with who I am as a person, which is what I love, and that's opened up the doors then for me from there.
Right. And Dave, from the league perspective, you obviously were at the helm of some of the biggest sporting leagues in the country. How do you sort of foster athletes from the league perspective and help them in growing their brand?
Yeah, thanks, Nick, and good afternoon to everyone. I think the way Dave and Tilly have explained it is a really interesting explanation of the journey of what's happened in sport over the last couple of decades. Was when I first started in sports administration, every piece of a player's image, likeness was contracted into the club and the league. The club then contracted to the league, and the league did the commercial exploitation of those rights. The players were paid a salary, a playing fee, and that was about as much as the athlete could expect to earn through that fairly tight, controlled, contractual situation. Of course, then social media comes along, and suddenly someone like Dave Warner or Tilly Kearns can talk to hundreds of thousands. In Dave's case, I expect millions of people follow your Instagram. And so the athlete then has a direct relationship and engagement with fans. Commercial partners see that, they want to be part of that. And so that old structure of everything being centralised has to be broken up. And as Dave explained, the league needs to protect certain sponsors, but those that aren't protected can end up in a direct relationship with athletes. And I think this is a really interesting part of the journey of where sport's gone already and where it may go into the future, which is you start to see athletes taking equity in sporting franchises, taking positions, go to the extreme of LeBron James taking a position in Nike. These types of deals are evolving, and I think athletes are going to become more and more part of the commercial structure rather than just being told, you're working for the man now and we'll pay you a fee to do that, but you stay away from the commercial parts of the games and the sports. So it's it's interesting to hear their journeys because they're real life examples of this.
Right. And one of the things you both touched on, Tilly and Dave, is sort of, it's like the immersion between work and life, right? And your socials show that in terms of like giving a perspective. Dave, you post a lot with your family, and Tilly, like every day, there's lots of different things that you do as well with the people that are close to you. Is there a pressure that's associated with that? I don't mind who, either of you first go, but
I think there's a misconception, well, maybe a misconception for some, but I get asked a lot, how can you post on game day and not get distracted? It depends on the player, but for me, it's not a pressure. I think people are scared to post in case they lose the game. Superstitions, whatever, and then having to explain why you lost. But I think that's a really special part of what I do, is that my community wins with me and they lose with me. And there was a period with me and the Aussie Stingers, which is the name of our water polo team, Team Australia, where we were losing everything. And they were coming through that journey with me. And I used to be the one that was like, no, I can't post on game day because it'll make us lose. I'm superstitious. Anyway, turns out we were losing anyway. So, so I was like, okay, let's screw that. I'm just going to bring them along.
maybe that's why you won silver.
Exactly. But the special thing about that is that they rode that journey with me, and I didn't just post because we were successful and here I finally have a medal, but they saw all the hard work and the downs and the, like, you know, the posts that you see, like, today didn't go our way, they just played better. Like, you see them all the time and they got that, and then finally they got to enjoy the high of winning the silver with me and the girls as well, which is so special.
Right, congrats again. Dave, same sort of thing in terms of like the day-to-day, both in terms of performance, but also just in everyday life. Is there a pressure associated with it?
No, look, I think, you know, as a cricketer, it's a little bit different. You're playing a team sport as well. And I think for us, it's about, you got to think about the team, right? So not the individual. So I'm always a believer of on game day, or, you know, the day after a game, like especially after a game if you lose. If someone scores 100, right, as an individual, I'm happy, right? But if we've lost a game, I dislike people who post a photo of them celebrating their 100 and go, oh, it was a great game today. But it's just, it wasn't a great game. We didn't win, but there's a photo of that person celebrating. Right. For me, I just doesn't sit well with me. But as a team, you celebrate together. You know, I think for me, your picture should be the team or your mates celebrating. You have to enjoy each other's success. So I think when it comes to pressure, the pressure is probably more your teammate having a dig at you.
Right. Until I guess a lot of your content during the Olympics was with the team. I have to ask you this. One of the things about the cardboard beds, was that actually true?
I hate to say it, but they were as bad as it came across. They were terrible. But we got mattress toppers, which was fine. But on that note, you're totally right. It's all about, that is a pressure, is some girls don't want to be in the videos, and that's fine, but it's about understanding your teammates. Some don't want to post, that's fine. And we're lucky we had a coach that really understood that. And my previous coach said no phones on pool deck, so there was really strict rules. You couldn't really do anything. But that kind of limits it. And then my new coach has seen the power of it and how it helps the sport and it helps us, because we don't get paid much. So we've got to figure that out as well. But again, everyone could ride the journey with our team and see how close we were as a team. But yes, knowing each other's boundaries and how to navigate that definitely is a pressure. But yeah, I mean, people know our team now, which is really cool. They come up and people are like, how's Gabby and Alice? And I'm like, wait, you guys, like, how, what? No one used to know about us water polo girls, but yeah, it's really cool to see that now.
Yeah, because I was going to say on the back of that as well, with the team environment, you know, if you come off from a day's play and you go in the change room, you got your phone on, you go live Instagram, the people who pay the bigger dollars, the TV rights, the broadcasters, they're the ones that get annoyed because they want the access into the change room. They want the access to you right there, right now. So that's why there's another side of it where, you know, your coach might say you can't pick up your phone for half an hour or whatever it is. So that's another element to us as playing a team sport. We don't have that opportunity just to go out there and say, oh, how good is this? We just won, because we're in our uniform. And, you know, so there's obviously in the future, there probably will be these individual contracts with people in team sports to do that, to not do that.
Right. On that note, I guess there's an interesting sort of interaction between like the bureaucracy of the organisation and then individual life, right? A lot of people, if they're in the change room, they're not thinking, oh, what about the sponsor, right? Especially if you won the World Cup or something, right? And you're drinking a beer or something like that, and they're like, hey, wait, it's not a VB, like, because that's the main sponsor. And so, Dave, is there, and just talking about that, is it harder for administrators to then be able to, I guess, control? It's sort of what you were touching on before in terms of like the power balance and how you manage.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all want to grab our phone at times, and one of the things that I'm sure Dave's been part of pretty strict rules around for integrity reasons. So for sports betting reasons, athletes not allowed to have their phone during play, lest they give some information, even accidentally, that might get into the hands of somebody. I think we've all read these kind of situations. So yeah, I think it's probably something that is hard to really manage, because we all like to pick up our phone and have a look what's going on, stay in touch, etc. But it's particularly important around what Dave said around protecting the vision rights. You know, certain use of club jerseys in the winter codes, and of course the green and gold when you're playing for the country. That stuff has to be protected so that the broadcasters will pay money for it. So again, I think this stuff is evolving from where it used to be. You know, somebody who is completely high profile can appear in a white t-shirt and everyone knows who Dave Warner or Steph Curry or Nathan Cleary is. So there's value, you know, even without any club colour or any green and gold, there's going to be value in those types of people's image. And it's just about how you manage that in a way which protects those that are paying a lot of money for it.
Right, and that's an interesting point when you compare, I think, the Australian experience with the US, where I've had a lot of involvement. The clubs seem to be less restrictive about what they require players to do, and more like, well, get out there, and the more you're on TV or the more you're on a streaming network or socials, the better it is for the sport and growing the sport and growing the players' brand. And NIL is a great example of that in the college scene, where colleges are just really propelling athletes and going, hey, do your thing, do what you need to do, and collectives supporting them. On that note, is there things that leagues could do in Australia that you think could assist with that in terms of helping athletes really build their brand?
Yeah, it all comes up to do, as we were talking before, about each individual. And I think the other side of, you know, as a brand now that not contracted with Cricket Australia, now this is when I think about it a bit more, because when you're contracted in the Australian cricket model, you have a revenue share model. So that's why the contracts are high. And, you know, players don't have the ability to go out there and get individual sponsors, which, you know, coincide with the platinum sponsors and that. So, you know, you're helping both sides. I think the more airtime you've got as an individual, the better it will be for your brand. But then there's a lot of people who don't like talking in the media. They don't have the confidence to talk in the media. But that player probably your number one player. And then, you know, Cricket Australia might want to put you up. So it can work both ways, but it's all to do with the individual and how confident they are, I reckon, with them in front of, you know, with people and the media specifically.
Right, and you have a different experience with water polo. You want to talk anything about sort of how, without talking about the rules and the organisation, but how you think that you can, and USC is Tilly's on a scholarship at USC, which is one of the massive US universities playing water polo. So how your experience with the Olympic team and then with USC, and like how they both sort of help you build your brand.
Yeah, it's totally different with water polo because we don't have those big commercial partnerships that you have to really take care of. There are some, but not massive ones, and we're not under individual contracts. So ultimately, if we want to get eyes on our games, we kind of have to go out there and promote it ourselves. So I think the organisations to help us help them, is for them to help tell our stories and for us to build up our own profiles. So someone who, I mean, a lot of you in the crowd probably have never watched a game of water polo in your life, but you go and you maybe follow me on Instagram, follow one of my teammates, and then you go, okay, I like their vibe, I want to see what this sport's about, and then you go and watch water polo, and maybe we have a new fan of water polo. So for us, it's, you know, we're not on TV screens, so especially in today's day and age, for the smaller sports and for women in sport, it's important that we go and get them ourselves. So my videos might reach millions of people, and then there's a whole new audience that might come and watch water polo. So a lot of our viewership is on us as players. So I think that's why it's so valuable for us to build up our own programs and for our organisations like Water Polo Australia to have a great social media team so they can promote us as players and help us grow. Like at the moment, it's pretty tough to even get a photo of me playing my sport because we just don't have the money, the funding. So if they can support by getting photographers at our games, telling our stories, getting a social media manager who can run the page and get more people, because we need to find those eyeballs through iPhones, the TV rights.
This is where the growth of women's sports become so huge, because I remember when Sam Kerr signed with Chelsea, somebody made the comment, oh, you know, Chelsea women's teams, this was in the early days of EPL having women's teams, oh, Chelsea women's team, that, you know, that's pretty low attraction to commercial sponsors, and the answer was the right answer, which was no. Sam Kerr playing for Chelsea, don't worry about whether it's men's or women's, that's a huge opportunity for that football club, that sport. And so we've seen this snowball in all sports now, whether it's the women cricketers or water polo players, or, you know, the idea of there being a men's team and a women's team, commercially it's all kind of merging together now, I think, and that's where commercial partners are seeing it and going, well, hang on, now we've got access to 100% of the population, not 50%. So, you know, I think women's sport's just going to get bigger and bigger in this country, but also globally.
Right, and that's like there's like two movements there. That's pretty impressive what you've done, Tilly, in terms of like taking the onus and going, okay, well, I don't have as much support as, for example, rugby and cricket do in Australia, but I'm going to take it on myself and do it. So congrats for doing that. But also then as fans, like there's an onus on the fans to really support and to do it through socials and make sure you're following and sharing content and things like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about like your community and the people you interact with? Like, are you ever astonished by your reach in terms of socials?
Yeah, the reach is outstanding. I think what's so special about my community is the engagement. Every time I post a story, there's so many people replying to it and interacting with me, which I just find so special, because I get to, interact with all these people from all over the world. Like, I had a DM the other day from someone in India saying, I reposted a video from my TikTok on my Instagram stories, and she replied to it saying, please post this on Instagram because we don't have TikTok in India, I can't see the video. And I was like, how cool is that? That she probably doesn't, there's no water polo in India, so how is she following me? But just that I have that reach to someone over there who probably has never seen my sport, but just is fascinated with what I'm doing and wants to see more. And I think that's the power of social media, that's why it's so special. But that's also why I share kind of, and I leave a lot of stuff private, like I have my life, but a lot of the cool things like getting drug tested, we get drug tested all the time. And for me, that's just like any old, same old day, they just rock up to training and you've got to pee in a cup or whatever. But for people online, they think that's like insane. They're like, how do you do that? That is just crazy. But that's just the normal for us. So to be able to show those little things that I think are normal with people who don't think they're normal, it gets them on board with the train. And then, yeah, we've got new fans, new people that are engaged and excited about it.
Right, and it's genuine, I guess, and that's also why
exactly.
people... Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about that in terms of like your reach? You have obviously a massive fan base in the subcontinent. Are you ever astonished by like people that reach out to you? Do you have any interesting stories that you can share? I know the pushpa dance is a pretty big thing right now. Yeah. Which for many, well, Dave, you can explain it if you want. The pushpa.
Yeah, I was just still giggling at Tilly's comment about the drug testers. Yeah, look, I think, you know, for what we do as athletes, we have to have that other side to us. And I think, you know, people want to see sometimes funny stuff. You know, I used to grow up watching Funniest Home videos. You know, people just falling over or something, you just laugh, or someone doing a little fluff or something and everyone just giggling. Like, it's these little things. So that sort of resonated with me, just to go and say, all right, to my fans, what do you want to see? What content do you want to see? And, you know, I've got a big reach in India. So all these Bollywood dancers. And if you've ever watched a Bollywood movie, their movies are all got dancing and music in it. Like, it could be the most gruesome action movie, but then it cuts to a dancing part. And it's like, I don't understand that. Like, why is it got this romantic dance to it? But, you know, they're copying, pasting and sending me all these videos that they want me and Candice to do. And Candice, God love her, she did a couple of them and then it was like, nah, these are too hard. The moves are way too hard. Like, you need a choreographer to actually do these steps. But I got the girls involved, and look, there's obviously some people out there that, you know, they worry for us about putting our children on Instagram, putting them out there. But, you know, for us, I think it's good education to do it as well, as long as we're educating them about what to do and what not to post. So we run their Instagram account as well. So yeah, we started dancing. This pushpa one became very, very viral. It's South India, so South Indian fans are very, very protective and they love their like heroes. So me playing in Hyderabad, which is in South India, I became sort of like their hero, and just kept posting all these South Indian films. So you've got to give back, you've got to interact with your fans, and as you were saying, Tilly, about reaching out, Indians, that Indian lady will support you until you finish your career and will follow you afterwards, because that's the type of people that they are. They love you, they care about you, and they'll keep continuing to follow you. So keep in touch with that person, because they absolutely love it, and I love doing what I do, and that's, I am making a fool of myself by dancing because I've got no rhythm, but
You're not that
I enjoy
bad. Come on.
I enjoy doing it. So no, it's great. It's awesome.
Right, we're going to pivot a little bit from that and looking more in terms of like the deals that you do with brands and partners. There's a lot of athletes now that are involved in the startup world and taking different types of deals with businesses. Yesterday, Kyrgios was here talking about Fuse, other brands that I work with in the US. Optimize Mind Performance is the one that Dave's familiar with as well, in terms of it's a mental skills training platform, which many athletes have invested in. And they obviously engage with these brands because of the connection that they have with their careers. For example, mental skills training for athletes has a direct correlation with many of their careers and experiences. So the question I have is directed at Dave, because I know you have Dave Gallup, you have some involvement in this with Step One. Are there things that you've witnessed brands doing that are different from the past endorsements, where you just get like a $15,000 fee or whatever it is to do?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, for those of you who don't know Step One's a bamboo underwear company that I chair, created by a founder, Greg Taylor, only about 5 years ago. He was sleeping on a friend's couch. He's now got a business that has revenue close to 100 million, and it's a very successful business with great association with athletes and sports people. One of the things about the model that Greg has implemented is, rather than just pay athletes, and this picks up what I talked about before, rather than just pay athletes to endorse Step One, we encourage them to buy shares in the company. It's a public company. We will pay them back what they paid for those shares over the next few years as they do endorsements for us. So it's a sort of a double win. You're a shareholder, and as the share price goes up, you'll win there, but you'll also get paid for us for the endorsements. This is part of what I talked about before, which is the model of athletes are going to become more and more ingrained in the commercial structures around sport and part of the commercial structure and have ownership pieces. And this is going to be the challenge for sports going forward, where someone like Dave Warner can play cricket for lots of different leagues around the world. How he contracts to do that should be up to him. He wants to, although he's retired now, but he wants to play for Australia as well, so he's always going to carve out bits of time to play for Australia. But he also is entitled to go out into the world and use his skills, kiss his helmet when he scores 100 for lots of different teams. So I think this is one of the changes that's happened, and Step One is a good example of engaging athletes directly in the business, rather than just paying them a fee and saying, thanks very much, see you later.
Right, Dave, and talking about that, Dave Gallup is talking there about you basically becoming like a strategic partner to a brand and helping them build. Do you have any experiences from the last few years that you could share about how you did that and how you helped and worked with the founders or whoever's involved with the organisations that you are involved with?
Yeah, look, for us, I part owner of a brewery down in St Andrews Beach in Mornington, and we were talking about major sponsors, which CUB and Lion have been sponsors of Cricket Australia for a period of time, and I really upset the apple cart there as well. But from our perspective, it's you got to look at a distraction from cricket, and I thought getting involved from scratch was a good thing. We are
drinking beer is always a good distraction. I like that.
Very Australian.
It is, but drink responsibly. So you've got to get that in there. But for us, Mornington is a destination, right? So when you do these sort of things and you're putting your money to it and your time and your effort, you've got to know what you're adding. What value can I add to that company? It's not just going there and going, yeah, I'll put some money into it and I'll let it see. If it grows, it grows. If it doesn't, so be it. I want to, if I'm investing my time most importantly. I'm away from my family, so that takes time and effort to do that. But I want to see this from where it is to get to as high as it can. And I thought Mornington, I think there's 8.5 million people go through Mornington a year. We want to be a destination. We don't just want to be a beer brand. We want you to come there with your family. If you're down there, if you're playing golf, you're visiting, down the coast, you can come there for food. It's a beautiful place down in Mornington if you've not been there. And then we sort of got to now, that was 2018 when we started, but we got to now where we're now at the centrepiece of Melbourne Olympic Park. We've built a brand and a reputation of being not just a great a product, but that destination now we want people to filter part through Melbourne Olympic Park because there's a lot of venues that happen down there. So I'm chuffed at where we are today, but for me, most importantly, it's a decision that you don't take lightly. If you're investing your time and your money, you want this thing to work. So to still be going now through some tough times through COVID, people wouldn't know Melbourne, you weren't allowed outside, even though I'm from Sydney, but down there was very, very tough. So, we had to make some big decisions and important decisions. And in the beer space at the moment, the big guys are squashing us. And, we're independent. We'll always remain independent and help, microbreweries and craft breweries stay alive. Because, gone are the days of just drinking a normal premium stock standard stuff. There's some actually good stuff out there. But for me, seeing this, investing, growing, and seeing where it can get to is most important.
Right, and that's an interesting, you obviously achieved great heights in cricket, but now looking at you as a businessman, it's pretty impressive that you're talking in that way and going, okay, we're going to take on big breweries. So that's a credit to you and the brand and everyone involved. Till, do you have any experiences like that with brands, and maybe talk as well about what you're looking for in a brand partner?
Yeah, my experience is very different. So I pretty much create content for brands through partnerships. So they'll pay me a fee, whatever, and I'll create content for them, post it on my platform so my community can see it. Because of that, I'm very particular with who I want to work with, and I want to make sure that it really aligns with me and products that I truly use or services that I truly use. So for example, one that I'm working with is murine eye drops, and that's very niche, and it's because we're in the chlorine all the time, and after a long week of training or a big game where they've put too much chlorine in the pool that day, you come out and your eyes are just bloodshot red, you're crying, tears are just flowing. So it's such a niche, specific brand, but it is very true to me. And I have a management team, an awesome team that go out and they manage all of those partnerships for me, and they search for some, and a lot come to them as well. And then we know each other, we work very closely, so we know what kind of things align and what doesn't. And then we work with the brand to deliver what they want. So they want to meet certain KPIs, whatever. They want to portray their product this way. And then if that works for me and that's something that I think I can do, then I'll create that for them.
Right, and Dave, what are you looking for when you are working with brands, and how do you work with them in terms of the process? Not on the side where you're within the business, but more as an endorser. Yeah,
a bit similar to what Tilly was just saying there. Generally, a brand will come to me with a concept, and then I'll go through it, overlook it, and see if it actually fits. Because sometimes with Indian brands as well, it doesn't really make sense sometimes. In their world, it does. But for me, when I'm back here at home and trying to create something, we have to tinker with certain things. And 9 times out of 10, a lot of the stuff is dancing. So I'm going to need a choreographer for the rest of my life. But it is it's so they've got Diwali coming up soon, which is festival of lights and joy, prosperity. So we're adding the kids into something there, and it's just going to be a lot of laughter, a lot of joy. But they're the things that we have to try and work on. Creating content is tough. It takes a lot of time, right? So I don't have that time to create. So I work with brands that have already got the concept. I'll overlook it. If it fits, I'll do it. So that's the tough part, is trying to work which one it is, because there's a lot that come through.
Right. And Dave, I'm not going to ask you about your content creation, but
Zero.
In terms of the brand perspective, because you've obviously had some involvement in that, what's the sort of process look like when you're working with an athlete, and how do you sort of try to structure deals in terms of, you've talked a little bit about the equity piece.
Yeah, I think you want athletes who really want to go the extra yard and be involved and understand the business, and aren't just doing it purely for the cash. And that's a bit of a two-way street, I think. And I think also it also comes down to, you know, someone like Dave Warner, Tilly Kearns, known as competitive, known as wanting to be winners, play their sport with smiles on their faces as well. I think one of the things when I was involved with the Matildas in Australian football, they had this kind of joy about how they went about their work, and it was infectious for people following the Matildas. And I think we've seen that, you know, with the World Cup that we hosted, the way people turned out to watch them play. So, you know, you want to back winners, and they're winners, so they want to back winners as well. It's a two-way street.
Right, and a similar experience, I think, with you. I don't know if you felt that energy, but I think a lot of the Stingers experience in Paris was much of that. Like, I was actually happy when I was watching it, which is a very weird feeling because you're so far away. Did you feel that energy on the other side?
Yeah, for sure. We're such a close team, and it's something that carried us through till the end. And I think people jumping on board of that train and wanting to be a part of our team, wanting to have a slice of our energy was super special. And then to have it reciprocated and seeing people show up, and we broke the record for the most attended water polo game in history. And I think, I mean, a lot of that comes down to people wanting to be a part of the vibe and wanting to see our success firsthand. So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I think that deserves a round of applause. Well done. DG, want to shift a little bit now to expansion of sport, and you're obviously at the helm of football and NRL, which is an interesting experience. The rugby league's obviously going into the US now, which is a pretty interesting endeavour. How do you see that moving? How do you see lessons from soccer, like with Major League Soccer in the US? Can you give some comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, you know, every sport is realising that the world's getting smaller and you need to be part of that. So I thought the rugby league exercise in Vegas, I went to it and I thought it was excellent. It was the hype that it created for the game here. Okay, maybe it'll take a while to actually land some real success in the US, but I still thought it was an excellent exercise. So tick. I just spent last weekend in London with the NFL. As one of the hats I wear is chairing the stadiums in New South Wales, venues New South Wales, and we really want to get an NFL game in 2026 as part of their international expansion program. They're now taking games to South America, Germany, London. The current regime of the NFL have really recognised that just being a domestic sport in America is not where they want to be. They want to be a global sport. They're spending money on it. They want to come to global cities with iconic backdrops. Of course, Sydney's got that. And one of the things that I kind of took away from last weekend over at Tottenham, watching Chicago and Jacksonville play, was that NFL has done a great job of breaking out of America. You know, Super Bowl day now here, that Monday morning, it's almost become for you know, a lot of people a bit of a public holiday, a bit of a half day off, full day off. So the way that's grown in the last, you know, my life, NFL was this niche thing that you heard about occasionally. Now it's all over our broadcasts. They've recognised that. So I think expansion, you've got to be having a crack. It obviously got to be sensible as well. Cricket with the T20 leagues that are growing around the world is obviously got a great opportunity with a good, concise 3-hour game that's exciting for people, men and women playing it at good standards. So, you know, there's no reason why cricket can't get bigger internationally as well. Obviously, Indian population, and particularly expat Indians around the country, without giving too much away, I think, you know, you might see Dave Warner in US cricket next year. There are 40 million cricket fans in the USA. Now, of course, many of them have Southeast Asian backgrounds, but that's a pretty big number when you compare it to our population is 25 million. They've got 40 million cricket fans. So, you know, these are opportunities, and I think sports have recognised that they want to get global, and you'll see more of it.
David, you have a unique experience on that, having played a lot, to Candice's dismay, probably all over the world this year. Do you want to talk a little bit about the experiences that you've had in different countries through cricket and how that sort of worked for you and engagement as well with your fan base?
Yeah, I think with, we're talking about expansion in football, cricket's a little bit different where anyone can, if you've got the money, you can start your own league, but you just got to get approval by the ICC. So on that basis, my experience playing in Canada, I've played in the Caribbean League, I've played in England, obviously here in Australia, Bangladesh. I've pretty much played, I think I've played in almost every league that there is.
Cayman Islands?
Cayman Islands as well, which was an T10, which is, yet again, it's independently owned. And they're the ones that, if you want to take equity in, you try and, to get players like us there's got to be something there, for us to, because at the end of the day, we're competitive, but we want to win. And if you're going to go, what Dave was saying before, you don't want people being invested in the business who just want to clip the ticket and see you later. We actually want to be there. We want to be a part of it. We want to win. And my experience is there's a lot of people who just do that. But the other side of it as well, until you're talking about, trying to get people watching and engaging, there's a lot of associate teams as well, a lot of associate countries that don't get the opportunity to come and play in a big bash because their name's not high enough and big enough and people go, who's this player? I've got to see a lot of talent from other countries that don't get the opportunities to play enough on TV as well, that are now on big contracts, because we get to go there, we get to mix with them, but we actually get to talk about them. We get to mingle with them. We see what their talent is and we go, hey guys, this guy played with me. He's actually a very good player. So it's an opportunity for the associate countries, nations as well, to actually expand into our game here and potentially in the IPL. So for me, I know I'm at the back end of my career, but I want to help. I want to help grow the game. I want to, we talk about being Australia's #1 sport, but it's Australia, right? It's cricket. We love cricket. But that's our motto in the cricket world, is to be Australia's #1 sport. So we've got to keep on trying to help, how do we get kids involved, etc. But from my experience, I think the leagues and expansions, we need to tinker a little bit with cricket. There's probably a lot of cricket leagues at the moment, and they'll hate me for saying this, but there's probably too many, because then you're saturating the market and you take that away from what you want to do as a kid. That's play for your country. And the schedule's hard enough as it is, and we don't want guys from other countries leaving because their pay bracket isn't what an Australian, Indian or an English player is.
Nick, I'll give you another good example of this, which just came to mind, which is Cricket New South Wales has gone into a strategic partnership with Washington Freedom, and they won the US cricket. And I think the sports that do this stuff well, and I saw it last weekend in London, are also making sure that it's not just about putting on a game and getting out of town. They're running flag football, they're running cricket clinics, because the stats show us pretty clearly that if you play a game, you're most likely to become a lifelong fan of the game, even if you don't stay playing for that long. So I think cricket, again, is one of those sports where once you play it, you get hooked on it and you probably follow it for the next 60 years. So it's important when you do these expansion things that you actually are running clinics and getting people engaged in playing as well.
Right, and Till, just talking about like the college experience, water polo is in a very different position to cricket and football, for example. In terms of the college system, water polo is a significant sport in the US and in the college system. Do you see that as assisting the growth of the sport generally in terms of like the opportunities it's providing and the prominence it's also giving to the sport?
Yeah, to a certain extent. So beyond college, and this pretty much goes for a lot of the college sports, except for actually pretty much all of them. So you get into college, you play your 4 years, and then beyond that, once you graduate, there's nowhere to go. This is college in America. So even with the NFL, if you're a football player, if you don't make the NFL, which only a very, very small percentage of people do, then there's no real other avenues for you to go. Same as water polo. You can love the sport so much, but beyond college, once you've graduated, if you're not trying to go to the Olympics and you're not in a national team, there's no system, there's no club competition in America for that. It's similar to water polo. I mean, I'm huge about participation. I just want participation across water polo to grow and for water polo to expand in that way rather than it becoming some global sport because, the baby steps. So even in Australia, if you want to play at the club level, it's very expensive. There's $1,000 fees just for you to play. The games are on Saturday. It takes up your whole Saturday. So you're paying thousands of dollars for entries to give up your whole weekend to go to training. Training ends at 9 p.m, whatever. So there's a whole lot of barriers stopping people from playing water polo, and I think that is halting our participation. I think those entry-level barriers need to come down so people who just love the sport and just want to play for fun can play, and it's not all about becoming an Olympian and winning a medal, because, I mean, not everyone can do that. There's a very small percentage of people that do that. So what about the huge majority that just love the sport? We don't have that.
Right, and that I guess touches on another thing I wanted to talk to you about. It's like being a role model, right? And I think you have already assumed that responsibility and been really, really good in terms of how you're building the sport in Australia, using your socials and your presence and your brand. How do you see yourself in terms of growing the sport as a role model, and how do you interact with your fans accordingly?
Yeah, this comes down to, thank you, firstly, that's very kind. It comes down to who I portray myself online. It's exactly who I am, but I think a lot of female athletes can fall into the trap of posting their bodies online. We're all fit, strong, whatever, have impressive physiques. It's just the way of the game, but it's so easy to fall into that trap where you just post a quick selfie in the gym of you looking great, and then boom, you get an instant, it's creepy to say, but that's what gets you the most likes and the most follows and stuff. So it's an easy, cheat way of building this following. But for me, that's not the kind of followers that I want. I'd rather have less followers that actually like me, and that's exactly why I don't post that kind of stuff. And I think that's important for young girls to also realize that you don't need to look amazing to play your sport. And there are people out there that they have amazing bodies and they're doing great things for body awareness, but also just by having a page that is purely talking about your physique, being strong, sure, it's great, but also what about the girls that just want to play, but maybe they're not super strong or they're not super tall and broad and whatever. So the sport is for everyone, and I think the internet is a dangerous place to get into that kind of stuff. So I do want to be a role model that doesn't make it anything about what I look like. It's just more my personality, my teammates, the fun that we have, the experiences, the hard training, all that kind of stuff. Sorry, a bit of a tangent there, but I'm very passionate about it.
It's important, yeah.
Very important. Thank you.
And well said. We're going to open it up now to audience questions. We've got about 10 minutes left. If you want to scan the QR code, you can ask questions. I'll come straight to my phone here. So we can go, I'll just run through and try to figure out the ones which have most upvotes. This is a good one. David and Tilly, which sporting code and which athlete do you admire most for how they've moved in building their career and building their brand? Dave first, you want to go?
I'll say two. Tiger Woods. Love golf. Just loved, obviously, the way that he played the game and literally scared every opponent. If he was 3-4 shots off, the field sort of just came back to him. He actually didn't need to lift his game because he had that about him. And the other one, from a brand perspective as well, he just basically owns it. Other one's Roger Federer. From when he first started, he was throwing rackets and his attitude was not great. But then he just built this ultra likable, lovable character that just showed no real emotion on the tennis court. But away from it, you look at the sponsors he's with, the brands that he's created is absolutely phenomenal.
For me, it's Aryna Sabalenka, the tennis player. I think she's unreal. She's herself on and off the court and on her socials as well. She's a fierce competitor, but you can see her personality through her socials and you can connect with her and resonate with her, and yeah, that's exactly why.
My daughters love her.
Yeah,
for that reason, exactly for that reason.
Cool.
DG, this one's a good one for you. Going forward in the years to come, what's more important, the athlete or the sports organisation or league owning IP?
Well, that's about...
It's a tough one.
Yeah, that's the balance, right? I think, when structures were put in place and players were paid a fee, had no real engagement, I think those days are gone. So the sports that are smart will be the ones that work out how to involve their players actively in the commercial results for the game. And that means, I said before, it's about backing winners, but it's also about, I think one of the points Tilly was making, it's also about how you handle losing. People want to be engaged with athletes who are good losers as well as good winners. Dave Warner nicks one, he doesn't hang around. He generally gets straight off. And I've always admired that. The players who hang around and want to look for something to blame, that's not a great look as a Test batsman. I think the answer ultimately is some balance. The leagues need to be protected to generate money to make it from the levels that are not where the elite athletes are down into the grassroots. So that needs to be funded, but the elite athletes need to be paid for what they provide. And I think you're going to see that more and more. You're going to see the stars of the game are going to be actively involved in the commercial structures.
Right. This is a question for everyone on the panel. What are some of the main actions that men and male-dominated sports can do to support women's sports and women athletes?
Show up. It's all well and good to post a story saying "Go girls," but actually show up.
Right.
If I was in the same country, I would. But I admire that. Absolutely admire that. And I think the good thing about what cricket did do in Australia was they ran the BBL women's before the men's, and the guys would rock up beforehand. We would always watch the back end of the games, or we'd get there obviously early, and we were warming up, and you have to watch it because you're forced to watch it. And I think what cricket's changed is that we actually see both of us working together to actually get more people involved, in the participation in young kids playing cricket, especially my daughters now. The numbers are going higher, and it's actually encouraging.
And Dave, on that, with your girls, one of the big problems in Australian sport is keeping youth involved in it all the way through, particularly as opportunities diminish. Are there things that you do with the girls, or that you will do with the girls, to keep them in sport?
Look, I think it comes down to financials. Like, a pair of boots compared to bats, gloves, helmets, and, your whole kit. There's always that challenge, right? So for us, it's about pushing them into what they want to do. They'll tell us by waking up not wanting to do something. But, that's upon you as, I feel myself as a parent, just to be the best role model. They see me in the gym, they see Candice in the gym, they want to go in the gym, but they're a bit young to go in the gym. But they just see the dedication, so it will rub off on them. But there will be a time where they go, I don't want to do that, and that's fine. They can choose what they want to do.
Right. DG, you were talking before with the experience that you recently had about sort of grassroots efforts that the NFL is doing. Are there things that we can learn from like US sports and international sports about grassroots in Australia, and particularly around promoting female sports in Australia?
I think it's this sort of making the whole thing one rather than two separate things, the men's team and the women's team. And you're seeing it, I gave the example before of Chelsea Football Club. You're seeing it in football quite a lot in European clubs. Playing games together, so curtain raisers, I think, is important. Having clinics where girls and boys can play together, but also providing opportunities for young girls who don't want to play with boys, who just want to play in a girls' team. These are things that we sort of worked through when I was part of Australian football. We realised that you've got to cater for all different kinds of kids, and some won't be comfortable playing against each other and some will be. So, you just need to have adaptability in these programs. But I think the key thing is what we're going to see going forward is it's going to mush together men's and women's, and it's just going to become people playing cricket or people playing football rather than a men's team and a women's team.
Tilly, in terms of the grassroots stuff that we're talking about, is there anything that you think that is the next sort of frontier, or things that could be done in Australia for supporting women's sport?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Probably kind of what you said, just barriers, both costs and like access. I think with water polo, there's a bunch of clubs that you can go to. Probably, you got to start a bit later. Like I started when I was about 13. I think just seeing role models, seeing it on your screens, on your phones. If you see it, you can be it, and that's a big part of what I do as well. I guess getting it out there on TV, sure, but on social media, because that's where all the kids are nowadays. So, yeah.
Right. With that, I think we have time for one or two more questions. So I'll go just back to this is a good one for Dave. Dave, do you recognise that you're not the original Bollywood superstar in cricket? You're not the original Bollywood superstar. There's someone else you're thinking about. Used to bowl pretty quick. Brett Lee.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. I forgot about him. No, but he was
Is
singing.
Brett Lee here? He must be.
Was that his question? He was singing.
All right. And last one. Given the importance of sport in Australian culture to global athletes, why do you think we have limited the invention and development of sports tech, and what more can be done in using technology to promote sport? I think that's a question both on the side of, in terms of technologies within the sport, but also looking at socials and how we use socials, Dave.
Yeah, I think from a tech point of view, like you look at golf, you've got that TrackMan kind of thing. So how can you see golf on a TV? You can't. But now they've got that tracer. Cricket showing you how far guys hit the ball, where they're hitting the ball. I'm not too sure about water polo, but, I think tech and real time, people want real time feedback, right? So if you're watching something, you want to explain that as well, why you're doing it. I don't know what the future holds for that, because there's so many different things that are coming out now, like even like on a back of a cricket bat, they're putting these little plaque things, and it shows you the input, output of a guy's swing, and how a guy bowls a slower ball, like a change-up delivery, and if the guy gets out, you can actually explain to the viewers, he was deceived if you look at his bat power coming and certain things like that. But then that's getting into a whole range of a different world. But I think the technology should be about the viewers, not just necessarily about what, the players' feedback is.
Right. And I think we can finish with the last one, is like basically what's next for you all in terms of, like, Dave, you said you're going to be at the Olympics. What else are we going to see from Dave Warner beyond 2024?
Unfortunately for the people who didn't want me on their TV screens, I'm commentating for the next 7 years, so that's a good thing on cricket. Try and educate a few people. But I'm still playing a fair bit now. I signed 2 years with Sydney Thunder, playing a lot of the leagues around the world, and just want to keep continuing to grow the game, keep being a role model, and introducing young kids to the game, and expanding that elsewhere into other countries, and just be a part of it, because I love the competitiveness, but I love being around the guys. So those guys there in the Australian cricket team, I'm going to be around them for another 7 years.
Right. Till?
I'm going to just keep doing what I love. I'm committing to the next Olympics, so
There you go, you
hopefully
heard it here first.
Yeah. I know, another 4 years. Thank you. And then, just keep doing what I love, which is posting, sharing my team, my community, engaging with people, boosting participation, being a role model, doing hopefully more events like this, and some great partnerships that'll build what I've already built, but also build my sport and my team.
Right. Dave, last word.
I mean, I'm lucky to have been around sport quite a long time now, and the central thing about it is it means a lot to a lot of people. So if you're working in it, you need to be making good decisions and knowing that people really care about what you're doing. I'm lucky that I get to chair the stadiums now, and that gives me, front row tickets to go to things, and I get to see all the sports, which is fantastic. I'm part of a sports consultancy business, Alacrea, which gives advice to sports. So any of you out there that are looking for some advice on how to run your sport, how to commercialise your sports and your businesses that are attached to sport. I think you're privileged if you're working in and around sport, because you know that you're doing something that's giving people joy. And these guys are great examples of that in their careers. Whether it's relatively recently at Paris or over many years, see Dave Warner get a Test 100, that's a moment of real joy and real inspiration to the whole community. So it's a privileged place to be part of.
Right, and on that, I think we thank all of the panelists for being here today, but more importantly for their contributions to sport in this country. So thank you all.
Thank you.